You're not dealing with a pain problem. You're dealing with an environment problem. And today we're going to isolate one of the most overlooked parts of that environment, and that's inflammatory load. Not inflammation as a buzzword, not inflammation as a diagnosis. Inflammatory load as a limiting factor, as something that quietly determines how much your nerves can actually recover, and more importantly, why they stop. Because a lot of people dealing with this already have tried things. You've improved your blood sugar, you've taken supplements, you've used creams, maybe you've done electrical stimulation, maybe you've done infrared therapy, and something happened. You got a little better, but then it slowed down, or it just stopped, or it even reversed. Now that's not random, and that's not bad luck. That is a limit. And inflammatory load is one of the main reasons that limit shows up. Now we're going to break this down in a way that actually makes sense. No vague language, no jumping around. We're going to build this step by step so you understand exactly where this fits. And by the end of this, you should be able to look at your own situation and say, this is where I'm stuck. This is why I'm stuck. And this is what actually needs to change. So let's start here. Your nerves do not exist in isolation. They live inside your body, which means everything happening in your body becomes the environment your nerves are forced to live in. So when we talk about nerve health, we're not just talking about the nerve itself. We're talking about the conditions surrounding it: blood flow, oxygen delivery, nutrient availability, signal quality, and today, inflammatory load. Now, here's where people get misled. They hear inflammation and think of something obvious: swelling, redness, pain, or heat. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about low-grade, ongoing internal stress inside of the body. The kind that you don't feel directly, but your body is dealing with it every single day. Quiet, constant, cumulative. And that's the key word: load. Because one small thing by itself usually can't cause a problem. But when multiple things stack together, that's when your system starts to struggle. Think of your body like a room. Every stressor is going to add a little bit of heat. A poor night of sleep, a high sugar meal, chronic pain that never fully settles, financial pressure, years of being told everything looks normal when you know it doesn't feel normal. Each one adds a little more heat. Now, one source of heat, no problem. Your body can regulate that. But when the room keeps getting hotter, eventually your body can't cool it down fast enough. Now the environment changes, and everything inside that room is affected. Your nerves are inside that room. They don't just get to opt out. Now pause for a second. Think about the last week. Not in general, specifically. Your meals, your sleep, your stress, your movement. Pick 3 of those. Most people aren't dealing with one. They're carrying 4 or 5 at the same time. That's not a condition. That's a load problem. And your nerves are living inside of that. So what does that actually do inside the body? Let's make that real. It affects the smallest blood vessels first, not the large arteries, not the pulse your doctor checks, the tiny vessels that actually deliver oxygen and nutrients to your nerves. When internal pressure is high, those vessels don't open and close the way they should. They become stiff, slower to respond. So blood may still reach your foot, but it's not being delivered efficiently to the nerve itself. That's the first disconnect. Your circulation can look acceptable at one level, while the nerve is still struggling at another level. That's why someone can be told, your circulation looks fine, and still feel burning, tingling, numbness, or instability in the feet. The test may not be wrong, but it may not be measuring the layer where the problem is happening. At the same time, your cells don't use oxygen as effectively. So even when oxygen is present, your nerve cells don't use it well. Now you have supply, but poor function. That's why things can look better on paper while symptoms continue in real life. Now that gap frustrates people because they're told the numbers have improved. They're told the report looks okay. They're told there's no major blockage, but their feet are still feeling differently and telling a different story. And when the body gives you symptoms that don't match simple explanation, that usually means the model is incomplete, not that the symptoms are fake. And that same internal pressure interferes with the electrical signal. Your nerves communicate through small electrical signals. Those signals need a stable environment. When your body's stress signals are elevated, those signals become inconsistent. That's when you feel the burning at night, tingling that moves around, numbness that isn't always in the same place, a foot that feels different in the morning than it does at night. Not because the nerve is completely gone, but because the signal is unstable. And unstable signals create unstable symptoms. Now, connect that to what you've already probably experienced. Symptoms that change. Better some days, worse others. Better when you're moving, worse when you lie down at night. Now, that pattern is not random. That pattern is environmental. When internal pressure shifts, your nerve function shifts with it. So when someone says, oh, it comes and goes, that is one of the biggest clues that we can get, because fixed damage does not behave like that. Changing symptoms tell you the system is still responsive, but is unstable. Let me make that real with someone I see all the time. A patient comes in and tells me, some days I feel almost normal. Other days it's burning, tingling, and I can't trust my feet. They've already been told that the nerve damage is permanent. So they don't understand how it could feel different from one day to the next. That inconsistency, it creates confusion. But from a systems perspective, it makes complete sense because their environment is changing day to day. Better sleep one night, less stress one day, different meals, or more movement, less movement. And every one of those shifts change the internal pressure their nerves are dealing with. So the symptoms follow. Now, here's where this becomes the limiting factor. Your body is always trying to repair, always. But repair requires energy, oxygen, nutrients, and a stable internal environment. When your body stress signals stay elevated, your body diverts those resources. Instead of repair, it focuses on control. It keeps producing more of those signals. It stays in a guarded state. That leaves fewer resources available for nerve recovery. So you don't stop healing completely, but you slow down, or you plateau, or even worse, you slide backwards, because you can't build in a system that's constantly putting fires out. So let's make this a little bit more practical. You start doing the right things. You clean up your diet, you improve your routine, you use a stim device, you stay consistent for a few weeks, and you feel it. Less burning, better stability, more confidence while you're walking, and maybe you even sleep a little better. Maybe you don't think about your feet every minute of the day. Now that's real progress. Do not dismiss that. But then something changes. Progress will slow down. It doesn't crash, it just stops moving. The same things that helped at first don't seem to push you further. And that's when people start to panic. They think, maybe this stopped working. Or maybe I'm gone too far. Or maybe nothing else can even be done. That is where most people get misread as not responding. They're not failing, the system is capped. One part improved, but the total load didn't drop enough for the next phase to happen. Now that's the plateau. Let me show you what this looks like. Someone improves their blood sugar, their numbers look better, their doctor is happy, but their symptoms don't match. Or they improve slightly, and then they stall. Or they feel better for a month, and then it slowly creeps back. From the outside, that looks inconsistent. From the inside, it's predictable, because one part of the system improved, but the total load didn't drop enough. It didn't drop enough for support to be continued to recover. So the system hits a ceiling. And once the system hits the ceiling, doing more of the same thing may not create more change. And that's hard for people to accept because they think consistency should automatically equal progress. But consistency only works when the environment supports it. If the environment is still overloaded, consistency may only help you maintain. It may not help you enough to move forward. So let's talk about why that happens. Diet, sleep, stress usually show up together, not separately. You eat something that spikes your blood sugar. You don't sleep well that night. Then, the next day, your body is more sensitive to stress. That is one system under pressure. And here's where people get misled. They improve their A1C and think they're in the clear. But your nerves don't feel averages. They feel spikes. You eat a bowl of pasta, your blood sugar rises quickly. That rise triggers your body's stress signals. Even if your A1C looks acceptable, your nerves still experience that spike. That's happening in real time, not on a lab report. Remember, your A1C is an average. It can improve while daily swings are still happening. And those swings are what matter because nerves do not live in averages. They live in the moment-by-moment environment your body creates. Now, sleep needs to be here too because this is one of the most common pieces people miss. If you're waking up at night with burning or discomfort, you're not getting deep, restorative sleep. And without that, your body produces more stress signals the next day. It also becomes less efficient at handling blood sugar. So now the same meal creates a bigger spike than it would have before. That adds more pressure to the system. This becomes a loop. Your feet burn, so you sleep poorly. You sleep poorly, so your body handles stress and sugar worse the next day. That creates more internal pressure, and that pressure can make the symptoms louder once again. That's not weakness, that's physiology. And if you don't see the loop, you blame yourself for something your body is struggling to regulate. Now, stress matters too, but I don't mean stress in a vague motivational way. I mean the kind of stress people actually live with. Chronic pain itself is stress. Worrying about whether you're going to lose your balance is stress. Being retired and still feeling financial pressure, that's stress. Being told for years that everything looks normal when your body clearly feels abnormal, that's stress. And when that keeps going, your body does not stay neutral. it stays guarded. It keeps the alarm system turned up. And when the alarm system stays turned up, the nerves live in that pressure. Now, here's the one that surprises people: gut health. If your gut lining is irritated, your immune system keeps firing throughout the day, even when it doesn't need to. That keeps your body's stress signals elevated. Not enough to feel directly, but enough to keep your system under strain. So even if you're eating clean, your body can still be under internal pressure. Now, movement matters too, not just exercise. Movement helps circulate blood. It helps your body clear waste and excess fluid. When you sit for long periods of time, that waste and fluid don't clear efficiently. They linger around and in the lower legs and the feet. That keeps pressure around the nerves higher than it should be. And now the nerve sits in that pressure longer than it should. Now step back. This is why progress stops. It is really one massive failure. It is usually too many small pressures stacking together. The blood sugar spike, the poor sleep, the stress, the sitting, the irritated gut, the pain that keeps your system guarded. Not one single thing explains everything, but together they create the load. And when the load stays high, the body has less room to recover. Now, here's something most people don't realize. This doesn't start when your symptoms start. It builds long before that, years before, with small changes, gradual shifts. Your body compensates early, so you may not feel it. Then one day, you notice tingling, or numbness, or burning, and it feels sudden, but it wasn't. It was building quietly in the background, layer by layer, until your system crossed a threshold. And once you cross that threshold, small changes feel bigger, symptoms feel louder, recovery becomes harder, not because your body stopped working, but because the load is now too high, which means where you are right now isn't random. It's predictable. Now, let's clean up one more misunderstanding. When people hear this, they sometimes think, so are you saying inflammation caused everything? No, that's too simplistic. Inflammatory load may not be the only cause, but it can be one of the biggest reasons recovery stays limited. There's a difference. One thing can start a problem, another thing can keep it going, and another thing can stop recovery from progressing. That's why this matters, because even if your neuropathy started from diabetes or chemotherapy or spinal issues or even unknown causes, your current internal environment still matters. It may not explain the entire beginning, but it can absolutely influence what happens next. And what happens next is where we're trying to change. This is where single system thinking fails people. If someone only looks at blood sugar, they may miss circulation. If someone only looks at circulation, they may miss nerve signaling. If someone only looks at the symptoms, they may miss the environment driving those symptoms. And if someone ignores inflammatory load, they may miss the reason progress keeps stopping. Neuropathy does not behave like a one variable problem, so it should not be managed like it is one. When you start reducing that load, things don't disappear overnight, but they do shift. Your symptoms stop swinging as much. They become more predictable. You notice that what used to flare you up doesn't hit you quite as hard. You recover faster after a bad day. You trust your feet a little bit more. You stop feeling like every setback means you're starting over, and the same efforts you were already making start to carry further because the system is no longer being pulled backwards at the same time. Now, I do want to close the loop from the beginning. If you felt better at one point and then it stopped, this is where you look. Not for a new treatment, but for what is still adding load, because your progress didn't randomly disappear. It ran into resistance, and resistance has to be identified, not guessed at, not ignored, not covered up with another quick fix. Identified, then reduced, so your body finally has room to respond the way that it's supposed to. Your nerves are not failing randomly. They are responding to the environment they're in. Change the environment, and you change the direction. Inflammatory load is one of the biggest pieces of that puzzle. Address it, and you remove one of the main reasons progress stops. Not a new treatment, a different direction.